And to throw in the L word.
Fun fact, men take an average of 88 days to tell a partner, I love you.
Biologically speaking, love at first sight can absolutely happen. I knew it. You can trigger the brain circuit for romantic love, and everything about that person is sexy from that moment on.
Oh my God, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. If your first date took a week because someone flew you over to Maldives,
I don't know what kind of dates you go on.
none is the answer. I was so into him, and you know what he did? The bare minimum.
I am Anna, and together with my co-host Andrea, in this episode we are going to figure out the ins and outs of the indescribable, undefinable, and provocative word, the L word.
Welcome to Sonder Characters. Finally, I'm so ready to talk about lemons.
I was thinking more about lions, but okay, when our minds try to avoid feelings, back to therapy we go.
Great.
Andrea, since you are so comfortable talking about lemons, I'm going to start with an unrelated question. Have you ever been in love?
Wow. The next question? Honestly, you saved the best for the beginning, didn't you? Yes, I have. Luckily, I have. And I think sometimes I was just very confused. But you do what you gotta do. Your turn. How's your lions and lemons experience been so far?
Yeah, I fall for lemons and lions like a rock at the bottom of the ocean. I mean, have I ever not been in love? On a serious note, I've been in love. I think it takes me around 1 year to see how deep I've fallen. That's usually when I say, and I wish we never met because you're so hard to forget.
1 year to fall in love. Yeah, that's not quite my experience. Can we even define love anyway?
Short answer, no.
Okay, great.
Long answer, it is difficult to explain what love is. According to the internet, love is one of the most intense emotions humans feel in life. When you do anything for a specific person, that's usually because you feel love for them.
I have something to complete that definition. Obviously, Anna, there are many kinds of deep affection you can have for another person, and they can all be described as love. So, for example, the love that you feel for your parents, obviously, it won't be the same as the one you feel for a close friend or for a romantic partner. But you can also have a strong emotional bond with an animal, such as your dog or your cat in your case. And that too is love.
How do you know you're in love? And how do you know it's love and not just lust?
I absolutely love the fact that you're asking me this question. As an Eastern European woman who was born in a fairly orthodox setup, my grandma would be very proud of my answer, particularly sharing it on the internet, as lust is one of the biggest sins. Anyway, I know when I'm in lust when I don't really think about the future with that person. Wink, wink. It tends to be very present focused.
It was interesting to look into the psychology of love versus lust. According to two psychologists, love and lust are very commonly confused. They say that the two phenomena activate similar neural pathways in the brain that are involved in goal-directed behavior, happiness, reward, and addiction.
Mhm.
Neuroscience proves that our brain, when we are in love, behaves in a similar way to when we experience drug addiction, which I thought was so interesting. They say that this intense feeling of passion and longing associated with falling in love is the product of a series of neurochemical reactions in which the brain's reward system, which is fueled by dopamine, motivates us to seek closeness and intimacy with another person.
That explains a lot.
And another research has found differences in the brains of people who've recently fallen in love compared to those that've been in love for decades. So during this experiment, when thinking of their loved ones, the newly in love couples has some additional parts of their brain activated, not just their brain's reward system. They had the fear and anxiety parts of the brain also light up.
Falling in love or liking someone to begin with can be a little scary. Arguably, maybe not a little, particularly in the beginning. Just think about it. You don't know the person that well, you are intrigued, you feel vulnerable, and you don't want to lose them, and it's all happening so fast.
It kind of makes sense when we talk about fear and anxiety in a relationship, especially early days. I feel like it's more likely to have the fear of losing the other person or not knowing exactly where they stand compared to where you are in a very stable long term relationship where you've kind of settled into that feeling.
Yeah, I think for me, lust is a little bit more clear, or it becomes a little bit more clear after a while, because it can be hard to differentiate between the two. So when I looked into love and lust, I found this article on marriage.com, and they say that the feelings associated with love, so real love, and lust are very, very different. They describe love as an intense feeling of care and affection for another person. It's so intense that the person who experiences love often forms a secure emotional attachment to the person they love. Lust is more of a raw desire, and it's very often based on physical attraction only. And this can either fizzle out or turn into love. And they also say that love usually occurs as a couple discovers each other's personalities and develops trust and understanding. Lust and love have different timelines, although this is not very surprising, because most people will generally say that they understand that love requires time to grow, but lust can happen almost immediately. And there is a big difference between the two in terms of how we spend time with the other person. So, for example, when you are in the last stages of a relationship, you'll probably just spend more time enjoying each other physically rather than spending time investing in deep emotional conversations. And lastly, if you are in a stage of lust, you might be lovers, but you may not necessarily be friends. So, Anna, knowing what we know now about lust, should we believe in love at first sight?
Match.com, they did a survey where they asked 5,000 singles a number of questions related to relationships. And this was over their annual singles in America survey. Apparently, 59% of men and 49% of women believe in love at first sight, while 41% of men and 29% of women saying that they've actually fallen in love at first sight.
Are you saying that men experience this more often?
Seems like.
Interesting.
So more men believe in love at first sight than women. And what's interesting is that men also experience love at first sight a lot more often than us.
Well, if you believe in something, you probably experience it more often.
A licensed marriage therapist said that people can feel this intense attraction and connection that they can most of the times mistake as love, because we like to believe that love is only magic, but a lot of it is actually a choice.
Oh my God, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Do you want me to give you her name so you can, reach out?
I can raise an issue with her?
MBG Relationships discuss this topic in one of their website publications about love at first sight. And they are trying to answer the questions, is it real or why does it happen? And their research shows two bases for love at first sight. The first one is the attractiveness of a person, which can be quickly determined. And the average time in one study was 0.13 seconds. Wow. The second is that the first few minutes have shown to predict if the future of their relationship will be successful. Because in these few moments, people realize if they have something in common more than just if they like each other. What was interesting is they were looking for factors that predict falling in love at first sight with a stranger, and they said physical attraction is the main one. Rating a person 1 point higher in attractiveness was associated with a 9 times higher likelihood of reporting love at first sight. So it seems like the more we find that person attractive, the more likely we are to say, oh, we are in love. Love at first sight. That suggests a great majority of people who claim to have fallen in love at first sight are actually just experiencing lust at first sight.
That makes a lot of sense. Because we only have a few seconds to fall in love at first sight. So, how do you know? You don't. You're just very physically attracted to that person.
I guess if you also have a few more minutes where you exchange a few words, you can kind of notice their vibe, their energy. And if that matches your attractiveness to them, I think that's when you potentially can get confused.
Oh, yeah.
Helen Fisher says that biologically speaking, love at first sight can absolutely happen. I knew it. I knew it. But she says that it just might not be true love that lasts a lifetime. She says that the brain system for romantic love is like the fear system. You can be scared instantly and you can fall in love instantly. She has a very interesting perspective. Many people claim that love at first sight is really just lust at first sight, as we noted earlier. But Helen says that there is an explanation for that as well. Love and sex are very closely related in the brain. So it's very often both. You can be in love, but it can be lust as well. You can trigger the brain circuit for romantic love, and everything about that person is sexy from that moment on.
And this is the thing. I feel like our brain is kind of set up to make us fall in love very quickly. That's why we can't see red flags sometimes. We're so obsessed with looking at that person in a romantic way that we're like, oh, yeah, it's fine, but they're so nice. They look so good. They're so sexy.
And also, if you have a great connection within the first few moments or the first few encounters, probably that's when you start finding them more attractive.
And I know what happens. Sometimes just that good connection is because I am in a certain vibe or in a certain mood and they're matching that. But in reality, we probably shouldn't hang out together. Anyway, do you believe in love at first sight?
I do. Been there, done that. Do you?
It's quite hard not to because my longest relationship started like that. Was love at first sight.
Are you sure it wasn't just lust?
Oh, I'm sure it was a lot of lust as well.
Time to throw in the L word. When do you think is the right time to say I love you?
My answer is I don't know, whenever I feel like it, but the internet seems to think otherwise. I found some common and conflicting advice about when to tell a partner I love you, and we can go through them and let's judge what's to be judged. You ready?
Ready.
So, the internet says that you should go on at least 5 dates before you say I love you.
I kind of agree.
Would it be maybe a little bit awkward to say I love you on the second date?
For some,
If your first date took a week because someone flew you over to Maldives, I'm happy with I love you on the second date.
I don't know what kind of dates you go on.
None is the answer. Next bit of advice is say it only after 2 months.
Say it after 2 months and you've been on 5 dates, which lasted half an hour each. How is that more appropriate? But yeah, I think after 2 months, at least it gives you enough time to reconsider if you love them or not.
Yeah, I just think that there's so much that can go into this kind of timeline. Next bit of advice is don't wait too long.
Yeah, I guess if you wait a couple of years, might be a bit of a push.
If you wait a couple of years, someone might go and find someone else who's a bit braver. Oh, this one is cute. Wait until you're absolutely bursting.
I like that because then you'll really mean it.
When you no longer can hold it inside you, that's a good moment. Interesting. Do not do it before, after, or during sex. Isn't that like all the time in the relationship?
5 minutes before and 5 minutes after? I don't know. Why not during? What?
But imagine if you said that during sex and someone would be like, oh my God, get off me. Maybe that's why.
I mean, if you want to finish, don't say it during. I don't know.
Don't say it when you're very emotional and cannot think rationally. According to this advice, I should never say I love you.
I'm emotional all the time.
Don't say it when you want to reward your partner for something. I have a few jokes that come to mind. Like what? Like washing the dishes?
Maybe that moment should be a bit more special.
Got it. Not after you fix my sink. Oh, never say it first and don't echo it back until you spend some extended time together.
I'm just concerned that both me and my partner will read this. I think we'll never say I love you.
Yeah, the internet should decide who is this aimed at. You take your pick. Never say it first. Someone has to. Fun fact. According to one survey, men take an average of 88 days to tell a partner I love you compared to a woman's 134.
Ooh, they are fast.
Yeah.
You know what? I found a very similar article from Healthline. In a set of 6 studies, researchers explored when people tend to say I love you in heterosexual relationships or when they communicate commitment, potential reactions to these declarations of love. And their findings suggest that men often think about expressing feelings of love first. So they are the ones saying I love you first. And on average, researchers found it takes them around 97 days to consider saying I love you. In your case was an average of 88 days. But what's interesting is that for women, it took around 138 days. Apparently, in this study, they found that men are not just thinking about saying I love you first, but they actually are the ones saying it first.
Very brave of them.
Men tended to consider confession of love acceptable after about a month or so. Women tend to say that they like to wait around 2 or 3 months. Very interesting how women require a bit more time. It kind of correlates with this idea that men believe in love at first sight a lot more than women. One thing that came out of this study is that men felt more positive about saying the word I love you before the relationship became sexual, but women experienced more positive emotions when men said I love you after becoming physically intimate. I really didn't see that side in men. Wow.
I would have expected it to be the other way around.
Personally, I don't think I need to be physically intimate with someone to feel very attracted to them and feel like I'm developing some feelings of love. But I thought men's love kind of goes through that. It is a process and involves physical intimacy to realize if it's a yes or a no. Every day is a school day.
On this podcast, for sure.
Okay, Andre, tell me a little story, if you ever had one, where you thought you were in love but was actually just lost.
I'm just going to say that I wish I knew all this before, well, when I was in my 20s, so I don't spend all this time convincing myself that I'm in love every 15 minutes with every single moron that I've met. That would have saved me some heartache, I think. God, I think I convinced myself that this guy was so attractive, and he was attractive, but I convinced myself that he's very smart, and I've kind of created this very romanticized idea. Let's call him X, because he's an X, you know?
He was not attractive, Andre.
The narrator said he was also not attractive. You know what? I felt like I had rose tinted glasses on. I was so into him. And you know what he did? The bare minimum.
You know what he did? Nothing. That's what he did.
He probably just made me coffees in the morning. And I was like, oh my God, he's so lovely. He makes me coffee in the morning. He didn't even buy me one. I can confirm he did not splash the cash.
No, I remember when I thought I was crazy in love with this guy. We went on a few dates and he did exactly what X did. Bare minimum. Probably if you had met him, you would have said no, Anna. He was not attractive. Anna from back then said he was attractive. Anna from now, yeah, he was fine.
Me and my friend, we have this saying that we don't just want fine. So if you want fine, go find yourself. Fine is never enough, is it?
Yeah. So things didn't work out. Thanks God. Was the wrong person at the wrong time. I was very upset about it. Looking back, I think that was a very silly feeling. I remember I went for a tarot reading, the first tarot reading in my life. I had no intention to do it because I didn't want to, or maybe did I want to talk about this guy? Maybe, I don't know. Now I'm confused. And this lady asked me, okay, what do you want to talk about? Or what do you want me to read about? And I said, just in general. And she said, you think you have your heart broken? And I said, oh, absolutely. Freaking yes. And she said, no, just your ego is broken.
This is such a key thing when you talk about love and lust, because heartbreak is a very universal experience. But when your ego breaks, all hells go. I feel like I know how to tell when my ego is hurt, I feel angry. When my heart is hurt, I feel really sad. And with this guy, I think I was also heartbroken. I felt so offended.
I know.
Look at me feeling offended by a guy who made me a coffee maybe once and asked me if I want one sugar or two.
One thing I do great is blame my past decisions on age. I always say, I was young. We all make mistakes. I wonder how much longer I can use this excuse.
I would say stop when you're 40.
I'll stretch it as far as I can. That's the plan, at least. Andre, let's look at different types of love. Hit me.
You're talking to the right person, because one thing you should know about me is that I love love. I love everything about love. And I love my dog. It's such a different conversation when I say, I love my dog and I love that dress and I love you. What I love about love in general, not necessarily romantic love, is when people show up for each other in friendships and family, in any other circumstances. There is something so wholesome about it. The meaning of word love is so interesting. We say, I fall in love with something. But it's even more interesting for me because I get to experience it in two languages, and I think that's the same for you. There has been plenty of research that proves that bilingual people experience life and even time differently. And I really don't see how this wouldn't be true for love. The way we use the word love in English is not quite how I would use it in Romanian. In the Romanian language, we have more ways to express feelings of love. Other languages have got more than one word for love. Sanskrit, for example, has 96 words for love.
Wow.
Ancient Persian has got 80. Greek has got 3. And English has got only 1.
I think I know I experience love differently because I'm bilingual. Let me tell you a little story. So I was seeing this guy for, I think, around a year. And I was absolutely crazy about him. Looking back, I really think it was love. We went out with his friends one evening. And on the way back, he said to me that he really wants me to be his girlfriend. So, in my mind and in my own language, I promise you, I expressed all my love for him.
And what came out in English?
Oh, nothing. I just went to sleep. And funny fact, that was the last time I went out with him.
I don't know whether to laugh or to cry.
Neither do I. I think I'm laughing now.
It doesn't really happen to me very often to fall in love with things. I'm quite good at being detached from object. I was watching a TV series and the main character was wearing a backpack, was sold out pretty much everywhere. And I still was searching for it all over the world until I had it in my house. And to the day I still love it. I remember picking up my dog. He was a puppy and he was so cute. It was very bittersweet for me because I went to pick him up from the litter and the whole taking him away from his mom and having this huge responsibility. Yet he was so small and he smelled so nice. And he was so fragile. And I just had so much love for him in that instance. And then love in a more romantic way. I still remember that sinking feeling looking at the person who was sat in front of me thinking, I can feel how I'm falling in love really hard. And I know that this is going to be life changing. And in many ways, it was.
That's very deep. And here I was trying to talk about the ancient Greek philosophers. I mean, I cannot add very much to everything you had to say. It's just that when you said your puppy smelled really good, that's how I fell in love with my cat. My sister brought Vay over. I was so unprepared to be a mom. And then I came home and there she was waiting for her litter tray and she was so clean. And I was like, oh, she's mine. That's it.
So, from everything I said, you just remembered that my puppy smells.
I'm sorry, not much. Initially, Andrea, I wanted to tell you the story when I fell in love with this guy. We broke up, and then he liked one of my Facebook pictures. I cried a couple of days. Andrea, I had to go for a run. I don't even run, I don't enjoy running. And I was thinking, is that a funny story? I was heartbroken.
It
So not
wasn't
much.
funny in the moment, but why did
He
you
made me
cry?
because he liked my picture. Why don't you focus? Probably was so meaningless, Andre. He just liked the picture.
Mhm.
No, Andre, let me rephrase that. It was a song. It was a song. Even worse.
He liked a song that you posted, and that made you cry for 2 days and made you go for a run. I'm sorry. Heartbreak is not fun, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't funny for you crying in the kitchen, but we all do stupid things.
Going back to these ancient Greek philosophers, they identify 6 forms of love. So we have familial love, which in Greek is storge, friendly love or platonic love, which is philia. We have romantic love called eros, and apparently this one is named after the Greek god of love and fertility. Therefore, it's usually associated with a romantic, passionate, and physical love, more of an expression of sexual passion and desire. We have self love, yes love, and divine love, which is called agape. This one is an altruistic, selfless, unconditional love. The Greeks thought it was quite radical, perhaps because so few people seem capable of feeling it long term. What was interesting is that the modern authors have distinguished further varieties of love, and I think we are so aware of them. And we have reciprocated love, empty love, self love, and courtly love.
I really like living in this decade where we've got so much access to information. You mentioned empty love earlier, but I had no idea what it meant until this episode. So I'll tell you. Empty love is characterized by commitment without intimacy or passion. A stronger love may deteriorate into empty love. So, for example, in an arranged marriage, the spouse's relationship may begin as empty love and then further develop into a different kind of love. On the other side, we have consummate love. You know, those couples that look perfect together and you can just tell how much they love each other even in old age.
I do.
Apparently, this kind of love is described as a complete form of love. The people who experience this perfect couple kind of love tend to overcome their difficulties very easily or gracefully. And they also maintain a great sex life. And you know what Robert Sternberg says?
No, we weren't very close.
A podcast full of information and dad jokes. Robert Sternberg is the psychologist who wrote about this theory of love. And he says that consummate love or maintaining consummate love may be even harder than achieving it. Robert says, and I quote, without expression, Even the greatest of loves can die. Can I tell you what my favorite findings about love is of this century?
Yes, please.
It's knowing your love language. So, Dr. Garrett Chapman identified 5 love languages through his work with couples that he has done over a long period of time. He has a book and it's called The 5 Love Languages, and it goes into detail about what these are and how we experience them. He argues that each of us give and receive love differently, but they all fall into 5 categories. The first is words of affirmation. So that's when some people want to hear I love you or other positive compliments from their partner. And if they don't hear it, then they might feel unloved. The second love language is acts of service. And that's when you are doing nice things for other people, whether it's changing someone's oil or cleaning the house or giving a back rub, doing things to help make the other person happy is what this one is about. The third love language is receiving gifts. Some people value giving and receiving gifts, and some do not. I'm not one of them. So if you measure your partner's love by how many gifts you are given, then your love language is receiving gifts. The fourth love language is quality time. Other people measure the quality of their love by how much time their significant other wants to spend with them. And if they don't get enough alone or together time, then they might feel unloved. And the fifth love language is physical touch. And that's when people associate love with anything from hand holding to cuddling or sex, it counts towards this physical touch. What is really interesting is that we all give and receive love in these 5 ways, but we all have one that's more dominant than the others. If you're dating or if you're with someone, it's really nice and useful to know what the other person's love language is. That can help you make better connection within that relationship. And if you don't know what your love language is, we've put a link on the website so you can go and do a little quiz.
I mean, I'm not one to receive gifts. Everything I want, I can buy. Rarely do I feel like I'm not loved if I don't receive something in particular. But in the same time, I really enjoy the quality time or I enjoy acts of service. The way you said, someone making me coffee in the morning. It's such a small thing because someone gives their time and go out of their way just to do something little for you, which can mean a lot more.
As a person who really likes doing acts of service for others, that's me. I find that it's no effort to make you a cup of coffee or cook for you, even. We're not in a romantic relationship, but I love you because I make sure that I have food ready for when you come over or when we spend time with each other. I love you because I do these extra things. You think they're extra, I think they're normal. It's nice.
Which one is your love language?
My dominant one is words of affirmation. I think it's very obvious to everyone that I love chatting. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this podcast.
Fair point. Now, should we see what other people say on social media platforms?
Yes.
The question was, what are the no responses when someone says, I love you? Andrea, should we do some role play?
Yes. I'll go first. Anna, I love you.
On a scale from 1 to 10, my friend, you're fucked. Okay, Andrea, I love you.
That kind of sounds like a you problem.
That's the good one.
Anna, I love you.
Let's put a pin in that and circle back at a later stage. Andrea, I love you.
That's a terrible decision, really, darling. Anna, I love you.
This is painful. Says Sin at 22:45 p.m.
Ouch.
And then I love you.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Where do I bloody start? Andre, if you had to describe love in one phrase, what would you say?
I'm just going to say that love is a better teacher than duty.
And as Nicholas Sparks says, love is like the wind. We can't see it, but we can feel it.